Hey there, and welcome to the Overcomers Overcoming Podcast. It is great to have you join us. This podcast series features those who have gained victory over a life encounter. With that life experience, we encourage those who are experiencing something that might seem to be insurmountable. We advance and encourage others by passing forward evaluated life experiences. We have 3 objectives in this podcast series. We want to encourage those who are engaged in any type of life encounter by offering to walk with you to help you gain victory over anything that might seem impossible. We want to share our experience to help you. Our second objective is to help you develop a confident resolve that there are multiple options to get past any life obstacle. It's a matter of thinking into the situation. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you are facing a dilemma resulting from a previous decision you wish you could reverse, we want to help you think into all of the facts and factors involved in making an informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business manager, Marty. Together, we are the Cooper Culture Company who is sponsoring this podcast series. Today we featured Dallin Candland, who addresses his journey of the past. He is diagnosed as ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder, and how he has dealt with that. And one of the things that he explains early on in his life is that he sought validation from other people. And the validation is, am I okay? Because he knew he was a little bit different, but he didn't know exactly how he was different and how he may integrate with other people. But it's very interesting to listen to his life journey, thoughts he has had, and how he copes with and actually had in his mind relationships he had with others, and some of the things they were doing, his values did not align with that, but he was just uncertain how to process what he was seeing, the people with whom he was associating, and how that can relate to life. He was very good at explaining what things were like with him and how he's still dealing with his ADHD. But Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from Dallin?
I was so glad Dallin was so open about his ADHD with us, and how he is finally thankful as this has helped him to accept the unique person he has become. He shared his passion, caring, and love for others, and his desires are to help others accept and believe in themselves through podcasts and sharing his personal stories. I'm glad he is open about ADHD, because we are becoming more and more aware of ADHD, autism, and the help that parents need for everybody to understand and how unique these people are.
He has a great story of a life journey and how God has brought him through and is giving him the strength to live the person God created him to be. Let's listen and learn together. Dallin, thank you so much for joining us. Our listeners are going to be very interested in knowing just a little bit of your background, and you have expressed yourself as having explored, I'll use that term, a little bit of coming up through, and now you're beginning to get more focus on your life, and you attribute that to your relationship with God. And Dallin, our listeners are going to be very interested in knowing just a little bit of the past. We don't focus on the past, but more so, how did we, let's just say, get a better focus on and have a better attitude toward now and the future? It sounds like you have a lot to offer our listeners. Dallin, great to have you with us, partner.
Thank you so much, Ron and Marty. It's a true pleasure.
Can you just briefly describe some of the past you have experienced? Maybe there's, in the earlier life, you did not have as good a focus then as you do now. And if I've described it correctly, how did you get the better focus that you have now?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think a lot of it came from seeking from validation from other people and not necessarily God, and seeking to have things in line with how I think the world would like things to be. from seeking to appeal to others. I fell into pornography pretty early on, and thankfully I didn't spend much time there, but it did make me think. And I have spent a lot of time deconstructing that and understanding that there was some unmet needs here, and what were those unmet needs, and understanding those. And now I celebrate that, and I have so much compassion on past Dallin, because I've just learned so much about how deeply he thinks and how much he strategizes for the next day. And so that's a bit of a glimpse, but there's just been a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, and all of it has been back to rebuilding Dallin's mind, because a lot of these things, they have the capacity to destroy, maybe not destroy, that's a very strong word, to definitely taint the beauty in our minds. And I feel like that's something that God has been helping me to understand over this journey, is that my mind is beautiful, and that I need to treat it that way, even if it is very misunderstood by some people.
Talk to us a little bit more about validation. You acknowledge needing validation from others. Is there embedded in that statement, Dallin, you did not have a lot of confidence in yourself? You're uncertain of relationships. Talk to us about needing validation from others, because a lot of our listeners are right there.
I believe we all have gifts, and I believe that some of those gifts take a very long time to actually be shown out into the world. So I remember 10 years old, shooting hoops, playing basketball, having a ball, I'd be like 3, 2, 1, and I make this shot, and I look around, nobody's watching, nobody cares, And so that changed. There was this dynamic where it was easy to think that people didn't care about the work that I was putting in. And so I'd have these times where I'd try out for basketball all throughout high school and, sophomore year, junior year, and senior year, and never made the team. And so I was like, well, God, I am reading your scriptures like crazy, and I'm having these spiritual moments. And when I go to speak up in church, I have my braces and stuff, but I feel it in my heart. And some people are talking over me. It's like, I'm taking this personally. I'm not feeling this. When will I ever get to speak? And do you want me to speak? Because I feel these things. Will I ever get to play on your team? And so I think a lot of that was, just wondering, will my time ever come? And it did come, a couple of years later. But, some of those things really just take time, just like any good crop, as you would know with farming. I mean, some crops take a long time. There's late bloomers out there. And that was definitely me. I mean, my last couple of years of high school, were super transformational, but some of the things leading up to it were bonkers and hard and difficult.
Our listeners might be very interested in knowing, did you think of yourself as being different from others? Did that ever go through your mind? And if yes to that, did you wonder if you could ever fit in? And I'm not trying to suppose anything. I'm just wondering if you ever thought that, well, I am a little bit different.
Yeah, well, I have some ADHD, and I wasn't diagnosed until I was 20. I also have a little bit of a photographic memory. And there's a lot of other things that I've learned about myself. And, I'm going back to middle school, 7th grade. We had a teacher that didn't really care what people looked at. And so I'd have kids in my computer class that they'd just be looking at stuff that wasn't good, watching music videos and stuff. And the teacher didn't really do anything. It was sort of like an Eli with his sons kind of thing. If we want to go into the Bible, he didn't restrain, he didn't stop anything. And I was memorizing all this stuff, and I wasn't I knew it was bad, and so I wouldn't look at it, but it's literally everywhere I look. So it's what do I do with that? And it just confuses me, because it's there's people that can watch this stuff and watch it for years and be completely fine. I've read in YouTube comments of people that watch porn every day for years and years and years, and somehow they can live a life. I've engaged with it maybe 10 or 15 times, and there's been times it feels like I've engaged with it millions of times, because it just gets in your head. And they say that the worst kind is the stuff that you create in your mind. It's not the stuff you actually see. It's all about giving yourself better materials. And again, that is what the enemy is always trying to do. But always the Lord is able to pull us out of that hole, and he sees us differently. And so, I don't know where you want to go with that, but that definitely has been my experience.
I'm curious, your ADHD, and I'm going to use the term dalliance with pornography, with no intention of focusing on that. Did your mind just wander off that, hey, I just feel like doing something different? Is that what? I'm not even sure how to ask the right question.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I just really care about people, and I have a very powerful words of affirmation attachment. And so I just remember what people say. Like, I will remember this conversation. I'll remember how you said it. I'll remember there's different things that will stick out in this conversation until the day I die, because that's just how my brain is wired. And so I've tried to avoid that. And so there'd be times in school where somebody, there's conversations from like middle school, like people pretending they liked me and stuff like that. And that stuff just gets in your head, and you're just like, I can be friendly to people, but will anybody ever like care about me enough to like actually like want to be in a relationship with me or something like that? I gave up on that when I was like 14 or 15. I didn't care about that anymore. I was like, I'm just gonna live for God, and I'm just gonna do track, and I just want to lift up other people. I assumed I would get in a car accident when I was like 18 or 19. I'd die. I learned how to drive. That was my biggest fear, is that, but I knew I'd kind of accepted it, and this is where it gets weird, because I did have these interesting things that I didn't really tell people about, but I was convinced I was going to learn to drive, and I would get in a car, and I would die when I was like 18 or 19, and that would be completely fine. But I just wanted to live the best life I could live before that happened. And so I really believe I was able to accomplish that with lifting up people and stuff in high school, and just kind of letting go. Because like that's what happened in high school, is where I just really stopped caring what others cared about. And I just started caring what God cared about. And that led to starting a YouTube channel, and lifting up other people and a lot of other different things. But yeah, I just got too loud, and just like, I don't get it. There's a lot of mixed messages here, and I just don't get it, and I don't have to get it, because I feel like God gets me, and that's where I am today. So I believe God still gets me, and someday I'm gonna be in a different place. I love living with my parents, but even still, I have moments where I'm like, get me the heck out of here, God. I am done with this. So, but I wouldn't be able to talk about this stuff if I hadn't been through that transformation period and understanding these things better and having love for myself, even with all of the things that have happened or haven't happened.
Now, the transformation, talk to us a little bit more about that. I am fascinated with transformation, and that's one of the biggest motivators of my life. When I am with others who are experiencing transformation, that is really energizing to me. But your transformation, can you describe just a little bit more of that? You were transformed from, is that caring a little bit less about what other people think of you and more of what God thinks of you? Is that part of the transformation?
It's a big part of the transformation. I could go into a number of different transformations, because there's been different transformations. There's teenage transformation, there's my mission transformation, then there's the transformation that I most recently had of graduating from college and feeling like a bum and whatever, and then bouncing back from that. Which one do you want me to go into?
Yeah, well, let's take that most recently, perhaps. You graduated from college and you felt like a bum. I'm curious, why did you feel that way, and what transformed you from thinking that way to thinking of having a more healthy outlook?
I graduated from college and wasn't very happy with the fact that I had some great connections, but did not get any kind of job. I had one job lined up that fell through, and I was just denying a lot. I was denying a lot, just like we're telling me. It began a lot of the transformation, being able to spend time with these youth who had never like met me before, and they were seeing me in this greater light, and that helped me to trust. I trusted that light that they saw in me. So that's a big part of the transformation. And then like just kind of letting go, letting things be, giving myself grace, writing a lot of poetry and stuff about all of the things I've experienced and all things I've felt, just so I can hear myself think.
Was a part of your transformation accepting who you are, who Dallin is, and maybe connecting with a better circle of friends, or if the better circle of friends, if that's maybe not a correct characterization, at least those friends who accepted you for who Dallin is?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think the identifying myself with different versions of myself was more important, though. Like, what is my identity? So a big problem or struggle was, having this gaming YouTube channel that I had done that was getting traction. And then I went on my mission trip, And then I'd have these thoughts like going back to that, maybe I could pick that up, maybe I can keep that going. And every time I tried keeping it going, in college, I sort of had this sinking feeling like this is not good. And I was like frustrated about it. It's like, I need to have some kind of outlet, God. And I already had my podcast and stuff. So there's a lot of frustration there. But yeah, you just had to accept that my identity was much bigger than anything I've done in my life. It's bigger than anything I've done in my life thus far. And I believe that God sees that. And so that is really what a lot of it came to, is trusting that the best was coming. It had not yet come yet. And I needed to keep moving forward. But a lot of it, was letting go. It's like, I could be like, I wish I'd never, walked in my apartment that one time when my roommate was watching that terrible show. Like he would watch that terrible show. It's like, we could wish that moment away, whatever. Or we could accept it and be like, well, what did I do after? It's like, well, I just kind of did my thing and I didn't act on the temptation. It's like Joseph with Potiphar's wife. And then there's other times where I have acted on temptation and did not, ask for help or, was very frustrated or whatever. And so just look at it as just giving yourself grace. And now I just take it a day at a time. I just let things be. And I've found a lot of peace with that, just like letting myself have the miracle. And a lot of it has been scriptures, like Lamentations 3:23 says God's mercies are new every morning. And so I just trust that. I mean, I got to talk with this really cool FedEx driver today that I would have never talked to if I hadn't gone on my run today. And so I'm like, yes, hallelujah. And I got to share a little bit of my testimony to him and he did to me. And I'm like, there's clearly a lot of life worth living for still, even if, I was feeling in this sort of real denial ocean, if you want to call it that. I just felt completely surrounded by these things, but just being able to keep going, and slowly he brings you out of it.
Was there a time earlier in your life where you could feel, I'm going to use the word traumatized, that may be a little bit over dramatic, but a couple of statements you made indicated that maybe you would just document some things you see, you heard, and you might make bigger deal out of it than what it was. In other words, one of the things I'm referring to, you walked into the home of a friend and you saw your friend looking at something. That's where I'm using the word trauma. That may be an overstatement, but at least you documented what you saw. You made something of that. You made a statement earlier that you walked into a friend's house and you saw what that person was watching on TV, and you documented that. And I just interpreted that as maybe some form of trauma. At least it had a very definite impact on you, it seemed. Was that a part of an earlier life where you could let things like that bother you more than maybe you do now?
Yeah, nowadays I'm just kind of like, this is Satan and get out. I'm done with you kind of thing. But, back in the day when I was in college, I walk into my dorm, and my roommate is watching this. I don't have any control of this. I mean, I do. I can say, hey, I don't like that show. And he will say, why don't you watch the show with me? Or I'll hear it because my brain is very hypersensitive and I can hear things way better than most people can hear things. And I have a very visual memory. And so I would go on walks and I can do what I can to escape. Yeah, there's 100% trauma. There's trauma with every single one of those interactions that I've had with the stuff, because that is what it is. Even if there haven't been that many, they're all tied. I can look back on each one and they're all like the Lord trying to reach out to me in an important moment because of what was coming. And there's always the fact that there's this quote and it says, the Lord is always for us. Satan is always against us. It's up to us to break the tie. And so, yeah, I've just experienced that a lot. And over the last, year, I've had times where I feel, because the thing with porn is it has dopamine, brings your dopamine up to ridiculous levels. And the thing with ADHD is you don't get a lot of dopamine from living life. Not generally. You have a lower dopamine threshold. So I could have a great conversation with somebody and I will feel absolutely nothing. And so I need to run, I need to do cold showers. And I used to beat myself up for doing these things because it's like, why do I need to do this just to feel like I'm doing okay? And now I've changed the script, being like, well, this has fueled a transformation in my life before, and it is what is going to bring me through. And it brings ideas, is how God talks to me a lot of the time. And so I don't shame myself for that, even though I saw it at one point as like escaping, but now I see it as running to the Lord more or less when I go on my runs and stuff. And sometimes I'll play church talks or something like that, and that furthers that. But yeah, like last year I met with a therapist and I told her like literally everything. And that was really nice. But yeah, definitely trauma for sure. I believe, we're all beings of light. And when you get in a room with that much darkness, it leaves an impact. And especially when you speak up and like, hey, I don't want you to talk about that, and people say, get out of here, and you can't really do much more about that. You feel you feel less able to do things and like a little bit powerless. And that's exactly what blows ADHD people up, I think, is when you don't feel like you have much power or control over things. It can lead to your mind going all over the place.
Various external inputs can induce various responses in people. Those external influences are sometimes noted as stimuli. There are some external influences that are referred to as trigger points. But what happens is the outside influences can sometimes manifest themselves as points of trauma. There are some people who are very sensitive to external noises. There are some people who are very sensitive to bugs, any insects, flight, those kinds of things. And those people react to those stimuli in different ways. And as we encounter those who do react to or respond to stimuli in various manner, it's a matter of how we integrate with, how we adapt to, how we respond with those type responses, those people who have possibly a different response to external stimuli than we do. It is a matter of adapting to, accepting those who respond to those stimuli in different ways. How do you respond to, or are there different responses to external stimulus that you respond? I'm going to refer back to earlier in the conversation where you mentioned you were at one point in your life seeking validation. I think what I'm hearing you say, Dallin, is that at one point in the context of seeking validation, you needed the friendship of others you wanted, but yet there was what I'm sensing, a value structure in you, what that person is engaging in, the person with whom I'm seeking validation. I don't have a good match. I'm a little bit confused. Dallin, I'm a little bit confused. I'm not sure how to work this out. Is that a little bit of your earlier life, and now through God, you've got more certainty of who Dallin is?
Yeah, it's just like, I didn't understand the ADHD. I still don't understand it. I was diagnosed at 20, and that was because I was on my 2-year mission trip for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we were in a snowstorm, and I wasn't able to go out and serve people. And all of a sudden I was stuck inside, and all of a sudden my brain had way too much time to do nothing. And so I was reading a lot and thinking a lot, and had a lot of stuff just kind of came to me. And then I started meeting with the counselor a little bit and was able to get diagnosed and understand more how this stuff works. But yeah, I haven't had anybody to talk with about ADHD. My older brother has autism, which is on the, obviously it's on the autism spectrum, low functioning, and, ADHD is on the autism spectrum as well, but it's obviously very high functioning, however you look at that. But yeah, I've never really had somebody to talk to about these kind of things. And so I have a couple more people that understand it now. But yeah, I spent a lot of time just not really understanding, or thinking I was very much like, what in the world? Like, who is this guy? Like, because there's these things you try to fit into, and it just doesn't work. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm something different.
I'm very interested, along with our listeners, getting a little bit more of your perspective of ADHD. For the listeners who have heard the term but may not be real familiar, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I am proclaim self-diagnosed ADHD in that I can have maybe 17 different thoughts going on simultaneously. And Marty, my wife, helps keep me focused. And so I think of that as attention deficit. But is there a better definition? You've been diagnosed as ADHD, but I am self-diagnosed. Am I off track with what I described?
I think giving a name to something gives you power over it. And so I think it's very, very important that you have some kind of name to it, even if you don't have quote unquote actual ADHD. And even the guy who diagnosed me, you can see the signs and you could still deny. I don't know. I mean, for me, it makes sense. It feels like it makes sense. It would it explains 100 million different things that I didn't have explanations for. Like if we go back, like if I'd been diagnosed at like 12, maybe I would have started just taking medication and I would have never gone into running because all of my feelings would have been, I don't know. See, this is where we're going into it doesn't matter land. It doesn't matter. I'm happy. I wouldn't change one stupid thing. Not one stupid thing would I change right now because of the life I'm able to live now. And it's because I really feel like the Lord has really just changed me through this process and being able to just love myself through this process. But yeah, it's important to give it a name. When I was able to, like, this is going back to the accepting thing. When I was doing a lot of the denying I was getting frustrated with myself over school and things being frustrating to work with and stuff, and my brain being in a bunch of different directions. But then when I finally started reading more about ADHD and listening to some people talk about ADHD, I was like, oh shoot. It was this like with all these different things. Like, oh crap. Yeah, it's you just have so much compassion on yourself. It's like you're not broken. It's like you have this thing that has been there for however long it's been there. But I think it's John 9, like, this neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. This was here to help out, ultimately.
Let's close out with this for the listener who is either self-diagnosed or maybe professionally diagnosed ADHD. This person is seeking other people's validation because they're uncertain who they are. They don't feel accepted by, and they want more friends and so forth. I may be including some things in that description that you did not experience, but for that person who may be feeling something along the lines, can you recommend a place to get started so they have a better self-awareness, self-acceptance?
Yeah, I think making each day special in some way, because they crave structure and novelty, and that's the kind of the struggle. Is like people will be like, oh, if we structure it this way, then it's like perfect, and you never have to change it. ADHD people go crazy. It's like, no, we need to have something that changes. Like if it's something that changes, like doing my podcast is great, or appearing on podcasts is great because it's like different people, even though the structure could be somewhere the same. I have a theme day thing that I do. I have each day has a theme, and I have an episode coming out on my podcast about that. And one of the ones that's helped me the most is Wisdom Wednesday. So tomorrow is Wednesday when we're recording this, and I will have no social media. I will go on a walk. I will go on a run, do some thinking, probably chill out in nature. And that is it. That's a completed day. Whereas today is more guns ho, all cylinders kind of thing. But when you can have some kind of day that is special to you and make it special, then it helps you to see some of these miracles about yourself. But when each day feels the same, you can start losing your mind. And I've 100% been there. So finding some way to make each day special and working on that for yourself is the advice I'd give.
Great. What is your podcast, Dallin, so our listeners can join in and participate with you?
Yeah, it's called Yield Today with Dallin Candland. And yeah, so YIELD today, and then with myself. So just talk about the conversations we're having with ourselves, better understanding. And I do talk a lot about my ADHD because it is something I'm learning to appreciate and celebrate and grow with. So hopefully something in there is helpful.
And YIELD is an acronym. And what is that?
Yeah, it stands for Yes, I Envision Love Demonstrated, because I really believe God sees our lives with love, and not just love, but love in action. And that if we could show greater love for ourselves or one another, it could completely change the world, really, because it just changes how people operate, how people respond, being like, okay, I want to see this person with love. I don't want to see them as an object. And you might say something that you might have been hard to say, or you won't say anything because you care about the person. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Dallin, on behalf of our listeners, I want to thank you for sharing your life, your experiences, and how we can move forward in maybe feeling not as well about ourselves as God had created us to be. You're a great example of how God created us to be very meaningful, very gifted. We're created for a very specific purpose, and you are finding your purpose in life. I want to thank you for sharing your life with us.
Yeah, and I would just say that the best is coming. Like, the best is 100% coming.
Thank you for that. That is part of my mantra. The best is yet to come. We totally agree with you, partner.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Dallin. Dallin has a very important message to each of us. It is a matter of acceptance. It is a matter of adapting to. And Dallin is saying very clearly, I just want to be heard. I just want my opportunity to make a statement. If we talk over, if we do not adapt to others who may have a little bit different style from us, if others with whom we are communicating process information just a little bit different than us, if those have a little bit different sensory perceptors than us, Dallin mentioned he can hear conversation more acutely than some other people. Those are just some nuances of other people. I want to introduce to you something to think about when you are in, let's say, a networking group, and there are others who don't know as many people as you. I look very closely at the groupings. Maybe there are 3, 4 more people together. Is that grouping a closed session? That is that a closed circle? If yes, that means you're really not invited to participate. That is the visual perception. Not saying that you would actually verbalize that, but the person who is maybe a little shyer, a little more reticent to begin a conversation might be reticent to try to engage in a conversation when his or her visual is that's a closed circle. They're not welcoming others. When I'm in a situation like that, I'm always looking around to see if there's anyone that's kind of by themselves and may not feel as comfortable initiating conversation. I want to give them the opportunity to join in on that conversation, to know they are very welcome. Those are the kind of things that some people process as, well, you don't think I'm as important as someone else, and you don't seem to be all inclusive to want to give me an opportunity to participate with you. There's nothing wrong with those people that perceive things in that manner, but I do believe it is a matter of us, through our situational awareness, to be very aware of others within our circle of influence, to be very aware of those who are within a visual range, let's call it, and those that may be a bit reticent, at least that's our assessment, to join in a conversation. As we choose to reach out and include them, we make them feel welcome. We are partnering with them to help their self-image, because there are some who believe that if you're not going to reach out and welcome me, then maybe I'm just not wanted. Those are just some of the things we can do to adapt to everyone and be relationally reaching out to others to make them feel we empathize with them, we care about them, and we want for them to be an integral part of us. Some people need the extra special reach of coaching, or let's just say it, everyone can benefit from coaching. We work with those who are maybe reluctant to or having difficulty processing other things that have resided in the subconscious that keep them from performing at their maximum potential. Marty and I are certified life coaches through the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. We can help you perform at your optimum God-given potential. Let's work together. Let's schedule a 30-minute complimentary coaching session where Marty and I can help you determine if we're the right people to help you perform at your very best, to help you overcome anything that may be keeping you from performing at your very best. Contact us at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. Let's schedule a 30-minute complimentary coaching session. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating with this podcast. We hope you will give us a review accordingly. We hope you'll want to share this podcast with your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn connections, your Twitter and Instagram communities. The more we share, the greater the opportunity we will have to advance others and to make them feel exactly how God has created them to be as worthy as they are. We are also keynote speakers. You can contact us at espeakers.com and search for Ron Cooper, F4 Pilot. We'd be happy to speak with your group, to associate with them, to relay some of our life experiences about communication, relationship. Let's work together. Let's share our life experiences. We look forward to working with you.